Welcome to Anderson in Focus with CLA, where Anderson comes into clear view. We're Community Lens of Anderson, a grassroots crew digging into what's happening behind the headlines, from budgets and public safety to social justice, civic engagement, and the folks making change happen right here at home. Real talk, real people, real impact. Let's zoom in. Well, we're here again talking about another special City Council recap from January 22nd. And before we go any further, we do want to give you some dates to remember. So if you have something to write with or something to take a note, there are some dates coming up in February. And I'd like to pass it over to my friend Angie. Tell us about those dates.
So there will be the regularly scheduled City Council meeting February 12th. And that will start at 6 o'clock. This meeting will not have anything to do with the sewer or electric rate hike or bonds. And then there will be a meeting February 17th at 5:30. That is a public hearing, and this is the public's chance to come out to hear about the plan and to give input. And then on February 19th, the City Council will have a second special meeting, and that will be when they vote. The second and third hearings will be voted on, or readings, I should say. And those two special meetings start at 5:30. All special meetings start at 5:30.
All right, so we've got some dates that we need to remember. We will remind you at the end of the podcast, but just remember, especially February 17th is a public hearing. Yes. We need anyone who has an opinion or a thought or a hope regarding these proposed sewage and electric utility rate increases to come forward and let your thoughts be known. So, as you know, we are Community Lens of Anderson, and our goal is to try to promote individuals to have a place to provide input on issues that matter to them, and getting to know their city and how business takes place is extremely important in that participation. So we hope that you are putting these city council dates on your calendar. So we want to talk about January 22nd. And as always, Angie does such a great job. She's been doing these recaps for some time. So I see you have copious notes over there. So
I do. Well, it was a 3-hour meeting.
Okay.
So we spent the evening together. And so this is going to be a very high-level overview. I can't go into the detail that I sometimes do because it would just take too long.
Sure.
So.
Well, get us started.
Okay.
What's the main topic, and what did you see?
The main topic was the proposed electric and sewer rate hikes, and there are some unaccompanying bonds that go along with them. And I do want to point out, because Councilor Dixon is always very good about this, and that is, he had the question at the beginning of the meeting, why are we having the public hearing after we've already voted on this once? And
good point.
And so I always appreciate, he's a fierce advocate of public engagement and citizens' voices being heard. And the answer that I got from that was, well, it's just kind of the timing of things and how it worked. We needed to get this meeting in first, and then we can have the public meeting, because nothing has passed, even though it did pass the first hearing. Nothing is set in stone yet. So there is still a chance for the public to perhaps have an influence on which way the vote goes.
Yeah, that's good to point out that, there needs to be 3 readings, and some of us may not be familiar with that process, and we can talk about that if you'd like. But it is important that there is 3 readings. That gives plenty of opportunity for questions from the council, maybe changes that need to be made to the proposed ordinance, and then again, this important public input piece.
Right. Yep. So, as often is the case, the ordinance was introduced by Mayor Broderick, which, when there are big pieces of legislation like this, he is usually the one to present them. And so he gave a little bit of a background, and he kind of spoke all at once, but I'm going to take it into chunks, because the electric bond and rates were addressed first by the council. So we'll just take that first and then go back to what he said about the sewer.
Sounds good.
Later, to try to keep it somewhat organized. So Mayor Broderick had his team of consultants with him. He has Bose McKinney is the lawyer, attorneys that typically work on topics like this, utilities, and then Crow is the accounting piece to it, and so they were there. And then also department heads, Light and Power and the wastewater department heads were there.
Good.
So that was good. Everybody was there to be able to answer questions. He noted that the Board of Works, which is made up of 3 individuals, they did they voted to recommend these rate hikes, and that happened earlier in the week.
Can I pause there for a second on the group of Public Works? You said there are 3 members, and is that the complete membership of the Board of Public Works?
I believe so. That's all that's listed on the website.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
So they said, yes, we recommend that these changes happen.
Okay.
So basically with the electric, and the electric rates are by classification. There's 10 classifications. So I can't get into the weeds about all of that for sure. But basically residential rates are expected to go up by about 12.5%. So, and that's just a general average. If you have more questions about that, attend the public hearing so that you can dive into that deeper. Mayor Broderick noted that there has not been a meaningful increase in the electric rates since 2007. And there was some confusion about that because sometimes in the paper it will be, there might be a little article about, our rates have increased, but really those are referring to the rates that we pay for the electric that we buy. It's not the rates that are
charged to us?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So if there's any confusion, and that was brought up during the meeting, just know that this is a long process. If the council approves these rate hikes for the electric, they have to go before the IURC down in Indianapolis, and that's basically the organization that looks at things over with a fine-tooth comb and makes sure that everything is in line and that these rate hikes are appropriate. And that takes about 10 months. So this is not an easy process.
Oh, I'm glad you clarified that. I did not realize that.
Right. So rates just can't go up and down.
Yeah.
But the rates that we are charged by our electric provider, that's a different story.
Okay.
So of the cities who own their own electric, which are not many in Indiana, Anderson is the 3rd lowest out of 8 as far as rates go. So it perhaps does make sense that our rates do need to increase because we are one of the more affordable cities at this point in time. And then I just wanted to note, and the mayor brought this up as well, that of the $7 million that the Board of Works borrowed from the Redevelopment Commission, they've spent about $3 million of that. So just something to keep track of and to...
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad that the mayor made a point to note that.
Right. I do appreciate his presentations because he does typically give quite a bit of detail about things like that. So
Good.
That is nice. He then turned it over to Chris Janak, who is the, lead attorney from Bose McKinney that's working on this. And he went on to talk a little bit more about going before the IURC. And one of the things he said that kind of, we need a sound effect when I'm about to state my opinion. Like maybe a little siren that goes off or something
we'll have to
alert
think
people.
About that. Okay.
One of the things he said is he's like, look, folks, we've got a math problem here. And, we are not bringing in as much money as we're spending providing these utilities. And on a very basic level, that's true. This is a math problem. But that really overshadows the complexity of why we're in this position. And so I really did not appreciate just kind of being flippant about it. Like, we just got a math problem. We just need to raise the rates and get this bond and we'll get back on track. We really need to go back to the why. Why are we in this position? What were some of the things we had control over? And what are some of the things we don't? We know we don't have control over the increase in prices. Mr. Syverson, who is the head of the Light and Power, he talked about how the cost of, I don't know if he said it was a breaker or a transformer, has, they've gone up by like 140%.
Okay.
And these aren't the little ones we're buying at Lowe's to put in our breaker box. These are major pieces of equipment. So those things we don't have control over. But there are things we do have control over, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that and that we go back and look at what different decisions could have been made decades ago.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
this is not specific to Mayor Broderick's administration by any means. This is decades of decisions to evaluate.
Yeah, and I think it's like you said, it's a multifaceted picture. It's not just math, but it's all of these increases and other things that play into this. But this is why transparency and continued communication with the public is so important.
Exactly. So Mr. Janak then turned over the mic to Jennifer Wilson, who is the CPA. She's the numbers lady. She's got a big job crunching all these numbers and making them make sense. So she's a CPA with Crow LLP. The amount of capital improvements that are being suggested to be made to the electric infrastructure is about $19.5 million. And Mr. Syverson, again, he's the department head for Light and Power. He went through a very long list of those improvements, and so I'm just going to highlight a few because it was a lot.
Okay.
There's a substation at Plant 20, the old Plant 20. I'm not familiar with this, but it has not been used in many, many years, and so they want to revamp that and get that up and running, which I think is a wonderful idea if we have something that can be utilized that's already in existence. So that's one of the big expenses. There are a number of vehicles that need to be replaced that are just not safe anymore for our employees to be using, so they are in need of replacement. Central Dispatch is in desperate need of a roof and a new or updated HVAC system. And then again, he went on to say that since 2007 until today, that on average parts have increased by 140%. So that's a lot of additional expenses.
Yeah, doubled and then some.
Yes. So again, that's a short list of a lot of projects.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilor Harless asked a few questions, one being, on a scale of 1 to 10, how urgent are these needs really? And Mr. Syverson said some of them are 11 or 12s, and then some of them are just, we need to have these things done.
Yes.
Like in the long-term planning.
That was a great question.
Yeah, I appreciated that question. And then a reoccurring question from her and maybe some other council members had to do with, well, how long have you really known about this? Which is a question that we like to ask a lot.
Yes.
Excuse me. And Mr. Syverson, of course, he did not want to answer that on behalf of the mayor, or so.
Sure.
But I think it's a question that comes from the public because we often feel like things are thrown on us last minute and not. We don't get to peek in and see the whole process of how we got to this point.
Right.
So. And then before they voted, Councilor Wagner did ask for a timeline on how long it would take for capital improvements to be completed, and that they weren't able to give a solid answer on that because he just said sometimes parts take up to a year to come in, which, can make a project take some time.
Yeah, this gives me just one thought here, and it's one of the things that I think the public needs to understand is that there are timelines where there's a sense of urgency and then there's this lull or silence about a project. And so unless you're someone that has time to follow a project from its start to its finish, we jump in and out of projects as a citizen at different phases. So, it would be good for perhaps citizens to better understand that that's a likelihood and to, continue to ask questions. Where are we in this project? Are we on time? Is this what we expected? Right. So those are valid questions, but also fair projects are unpredictable.
Right. And the grocery store is a great example of that.
Right.
Something that we were expecting to be built and completed by the end of 2023. And that's always the question. Where are we with this project? So.
And one more assertion, I hope that those that are in charge of those projects, continue to understand the value of those questions.
Right. It goes a long way to building trust with the community. So the vote on this was very interesting.
Okay. I'm ready.
it was a 5-4 vote, but it was not 5 yes, 4 no's. It was 5 yes, 4 abstains or abstentions. I don't know. It's a word I don't use very often. And so Councilor Turnus, that would be Councilor Tarner and Harless.
Tarner. You said Tarner. It's okay.
Okay. I can see him in my head. It's Councilor Turner. When he voted, he made a statement. And I don't have it written down verbatim, but basically this is what he said. He says, I support infrastructure and reliable utilities, but will not rush a vote without a clear plan in regards to rate hikes. And so he abstained from the vote. He's like, I'm not making a decision until I have more time. And that was that sentiment was repeated by Councilor Harless, Councilor Landers, and Councilor Culp. Now, here's where it got tricky. So that's 4 abstentions, whatever. And Councilor Dixon, in the meantime, votes no. So for about 5 to 10 seconds, this was voted down in the first reading, which means it's done. I know. It was like all the air in the room went out, and we were like, what just happened?
Wow.
And so what did happen is Councilor Turner ended up changing his vote to a yes vote.
Well, so how did you sense everyone looking around as if that someone stepped out of what was expected, or they didn't? This is where this my opinion comes in. Opinion, woo woo woo. Here we go.
I think that the 4 who voted to abstain did not expect Councilor Dixon to vote no.
Okay.
Because in this vote, you need the majority of those in present.
Okay.
So it's not like, 5-4, hey, we still passed it. No, you didn't. Well, it was at that time it was 4 votes yes, 1 vote no, 4 abstaining. That was not enough to pass it.
Yeah, so that was only 4 for it.
Yes.
And the others had a different vote.
Yeah, so you needed 5
okay.
for it.
I gotcha.
So never saw that before.
Interesting. So listen, I'm going to be very honest with you, and here's where my siren comes. This is Kelly's opinion. I would have loved to. I wasn't able to go to the meeting, so I'm just living through you. But I would have loved to have seen the eye connections in the room. Like, is that what I just saw? And a panic from some folks in other seats, or those who had just presented. What do we do now? So right. Interesting. I wish I would have been there.
And if the space between Councilor Turner changing his vote and, the actual outcome of the first vote, if that had been longer, I'm sure there would have been a lot of scrambling.
Okay.
Because, like I said, then this is dead. And from my understanding, it can't be revisited just, at the next meeting. There has to be a certain amount of time. I'm not 100% on that, but that's what I feel I've heard on other ordinances. Once it's dead, there has to be
time period before it's represented or repurposed.
So, and also there was a little bit of a kerfuffle about how a council member can abstain. When Councilor Turner first said, I'm going to abstain, they were like, well, you have to leave the room to do that. And it's like, well, how do you leave the room and abstain? I mean, if you're not in the room, you're not going to vote. I mean, it was...
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. Just on Wednesday, Candy Short and I went to something over in Hancock County, and their foundation had a civic superhero training, and we went through a mock city council, and there were abstentions on that vote.
Nice.
And no one was recommended to leave. Okay. So I don't think unless that's a practice specific to Anderson.
Well, they did dive into the bylaws a little bit, and they and Robert's Rules of Order, and it was decided after about a 10-minute, what do they call it, break?
Recess.
Thank you. That nobody had to leave the room to abstain. So.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. We didn't know about that little wrinkle, but thanks for bringing it to us.
So that first vote was on the electric rate hike. The second vote that had to do with the electric was on a bond. And the bond is for $5.3 million as a cap, but they really want to keep the expenses around $4.6 million.
Okay.
And that's common in bonds to have that cushion, of course, because you can't predict everything that may happen.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Janak was the one who really came up and spoke about this, and he really didn't say anything new about this bond specifically. Mr. Rob Josiak
Mm-hmm.
was in the audience, and he came up to ask a question about how much of, and it kind of went back to the rate, not specific to the bond, but how much of the rate increase is for capital improvement and how much of it is to make up the shortfall.
Oh, good question.
Yes, a good point of clarification. And the answer was the majority of the rate increase is for operating expenses, not necessarily capital improvements.
Mm-hmm. And did you mention this already? Did in their presentation, the shortfall, did they give kind of an answer of just like it's really just the increase in capital improvements have just gotten them behind, and because they've not come to raise rates in a long time, that's the formula that got us here? Did you say that they said anything in particular?
I don't remember anything specific about. Are you talking about the $7 million that was borrowed?
Well, yes. What was? How did we get to this urgent situation? I know that you talked a little earlier on, but I'm still trying to parse it out if they've really clarified that.
No, I think that would be a great question to bring forward at the public hearing.
Okay.
To really have that, like you said, parsed out. Is that the word you used?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that right?
I think so.
We are not
increasing my vocabulary.
And we are not English teachers here, but we appreciate all of the English teachers out there. We'll try to do better.
For sure. So that vote was, now that all the surprises happened during the first ordinance vote, this vote went 5-3-1. So 5 yes, 3 abstained, and 3 no's and 1 abstained. So Councilor Culp abstained on this. Councilors Dixon, Harless, and Landers voted no on this. So,
Well, so again, I'm going to ask this: what do we attribute the abstentions to? What are you thinking about that?
I think that it's a less harsh way to say no.
Okay.
I haven't really made my mind up about this yet.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm in a position to make a vote, and so I need more time. I need more information. And since this was the first reading, and they fully expected it to pass, then this time now between January 22nd and February 19th, when they vote again, is when hopefully they're getting the answers to their questions.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm going to bring back the request from the community. Both you and I and several others have asked, when you're making decisions as a city council, we trust and hope that you're getting all of the information in a timely manner. You're making good decisions based on maybe even talking to constituents and different things as part of your role as a city council person. So I'm going to hope that some of those requests may have put that in the minds of the counselors who were voting.
Right.
Maybe if they weren't ready, they realized that's their prerogative to, wait a minute, let me get more information, let me think about this. And that's not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that for sure. And I think that is also a reason why ordinances are set up this way, where you can typically only have 2 readings in one meeting, and then there's a time period, another month usually, before the last reading. And so that gives counselors a chance to get more information, more public input.
Yeah, and so as I've watched the readings, and this one's a little bit different because they maybe pretty standard. There's one reading in the initial meeting, which would have been the 22nd, and then no readings for the 17th during the public hearing.
Correct.
And then there will be the final 2 readings most likely, and they'll ask for, I forget what that's called, when they ask for us to suspend the rules and let's go ahead with a second reading or a reading back to back in the same meeting. Usually they I've heard them request, let's
Right.
suspend the rule. So
If they want to do all 3 readings in one meeting,
That's
then
when
you can suspend the rules.
that's when they do that.
But
Okay.
it has to be a unanimous vote by the council to suspend the rules.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
yes, and that typically only happens for like abatements,
All right.
but
Good to know.
like zoning, you can't do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Angie, you're a wealth of knowledge.
Well, I'm just
Thank you.
been hanging around a while.
What else did you see?
So the second part of this is
Okay.
the sewer bond and rate hike.
Okay.
So going back to what Mayor Broderick said when he presented in the beginning, sewer rate hikes have not, there has not been a sewer rate increase since April of 2009.
Wow.
And on average, the average person can expect an 18% increase. So that's a pretty big jump,
yeah.
$18 on every $100 of your sewer bill.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he emphasized that they are trying to keep this as low as possible, which we would hope that they certainly are. So unlike the electric, the sewer rate, if it's approved on the 19th, will go into effect immediately. There's no other governing board that has to oversee this rate increase. It's just the council. He, I shouldn't say a number of times, but he did use the words urgent and desperate when he was presenting as far as this needing to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I took that to mean was in regards to needing this to be passed quickly because of our bond that we already have that's outstanding.
Okay.
And one more thing before talking about that bond, though, is that right now, as far as our sewer utilities, there are 39 other municipalities that own their own sewer utility, and we are 29th out of 39 as far as where we rate for our rates.
Okay.
We rate for our rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're in the bottom third on both utilities for our affordability.
Yes.
Or at least we're not on the high list. So
Right. And the question would be, has that been serving us well over the years or not?
that's a good.
I mean,
yeah.
that would be a debate, a conversation to have for sure. So in order to talk about the bond that is causing the urgency, we have to go back to 2002.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I wanted a little history on this. Thank you.
So,
You
and
see
this
me
is-
excited over here.
Yeah, this is very high level again. So 2002 is when, we had a fish kill. Everybody remembers that, 1999.
Mm-hmm.
It was not good. And so there was a lawsuit against the city of Anderson, and Guide Corporation, and they paid their fines, and the city of Anderson paid their fines. But another piece of that was that the city had to make changes to its combined sewer overflow system.
Okay.
So there was this thing called a consent decree that came out of that lawsuit. And the first benchmark for this work to be completed was 2009. That was renegotiated until 2029. So we're
So they extended the deadline?
right.
That's 20 years
20
later?
years. And okay, how about this? We are in current negotiations to have that extended even further, another 24 years from my
Anyone
understanding.
listening that's an environmentalist that's keeping track of this remediation, is that
Right.
what we're calling this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say it's a remediation.
Okay.
From and again, this is from my understanding, what I've grabbed from this meeting. We started with 28 of these combined sewer overflows, which basically is our stormwater and our wastewater, like the wastewater that comes out of our homes, goes into a combined pipe and goes to the water treatment plant, water pollution, and is treated. Well, when we have heavy rains, our system can't handle the amount of volume of liquid coming through, and so it overflows into our river. And at one time there were 28 of these in the city, and which is common. Like Anderson is a city that was built long ago, and so these were very much the norm back then.
Okay.
But now we know better, and we have more rainfall, and it comes quicker and harder than it did in the past, it seems. And so it's been a tremendous stress on our systems. So we went from 28 and we're now down to 11 So we're getting there.
Okay, so when you say down to 11, the other, whatever the, excuse me, the 17 have been replaced with more improved systems?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
But they didn't get into the details of that.
Okay.
Just those numbers. So at that time, so there have been a number of bonds that have been taken out to work on these sewer projects. The most recent would be what people probably would recognize is the work that was done at Edgewater Park. And they call that the Interceptor Project. So, and that took quite a while just to get that little area done. So these are time-consuming projects.
This is really stuff that I did not understand, and I'm going to take a guess that many of us didn't or we don't pay attention to. So there's a lot of work to be done in this arena.
Yes. So the reason for the rate increase is that the bond they referred to the 2009 bond. And apparently if our revenue being brought in by our sewer rates is not at 100% of what we need in order to provide our services, then we are out of compliance with our bond. So that makes sense, right? You got to make enough money to pay us back because a bond is basically a loan, from my understanding.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So without the rate increase, we'd be at 63%.
Oh, okay.
Yes, 63%. So that's the urgency because
yes,
we don't want to be out of compliance with this bond.
Okay.
My question is, I think the remaining balance on the bond they stated was about $1.8 or $1.9 million. I don't know the rules. It's like, well, can't we just pay that off?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking
we've
too.
got some money set aside, and then we don't have
penalty
this issue.
for early payoff or whatever.
So that's another question that would be great to have answered at the public hearing.
Okay.
How does are we truly in this urgent position because of this bond, or can we work around that and then have some more time to deal with the questions at hand?
Yeah, and I think before the public hearing on February 17th, which again is at 5:30, I think it would be good for the public to start formulating those questions now. So
yes, I agree. The sewer bond is $10 million that they're asking for in this ordinance.
Okay.
And I just want to footnote one little thing is that the mayor made a comment that we'll have to come back and look at the sewer rates again in 2028 or 2029, which is 2 or 3 years. I know. So we'll footnote that.
Yeah.
And I know we're getting long into this podcast, but again, it was 3 hours. So I hope you can hang in there with us.
You're doing a great job. Thank you.
So Mr. Janak came up and spoke again about the compliance with the bond and brought up the consent decree, which our city attorney or assistant city attorney, Tim Lannon, came up and spoke about that. And so the interesting thing I want to pull out from what he said is that there are $84 million of capital improvements that need to be done to our sewer infrastructure. And then he threw out the number $103 million. And I didn't write down exactly what he said about that. But those are just two numbers he just kind of threw out during his going over the importance of staying in compliance with this consent decree.
I'm going to make a few notes here. So,
Sure.
Yes, continue. I'm listening.
Okay. And then Miss Wilson came back up, the numbers lady. The bond is for up to $10 million. They only really want to spend $8.7 million. The rate increase, again, would be about 18%, which would move us up from that 31 of 39 on the list to 26 out of 39. So it still doesn't even put us in the top half of rates.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So if we do hear this revisited in the next 2 to 3 years, what percentage of increase would still be reasonable for us to consider?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
And, there were a few other questions that were asked by the public that, have we considered public or federal grants? Yes, we're looking into that, but there was something about needing a long-term control plan in place before we can get funds from the state, because really federal dollars funnel down through the state, and then the state passes it on to the municipalities.
I heard something interesting related to what you just said. So I did hear in this training on Wednesday, again from the Hancock County group, that if you're looking to use state or federal dollars on a particular project, you can almost bet that the completion of the project will be no less than a 5-year timeline.
Wow.
So
that's perspective.
Yeah, that kind of gives you an indication of what comes with those dollars and probably the reporting, etc.
Right. And this is another reason why it is so important for there to be some sort of a dashboard. It's like, hey, folks, this is where we're at, and this is why we can't move to the next phase until, this happens. And then people understand, and then we're not making up reasons on why a project is taking so long.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was an opinion. So this ordinance passed as well, 5-4, and again, there were 5 votes in favor, and this one, I'd have to look back in my notes. I didn't write it down. If it was actually 5 abstaining or saying no.
I was wondering, do they keep track of the voting? I guess in the minutes, you'd have to go back to see that. So I'm going to make a note here, too. By the end of this, we want to announce or at least mention where people can get the agendas. And
yes. Oh, so it was 5 abstaining, or
okay.
4 abstaining.
Okay,
yeah.
4 abstaining.
I didn't write it on my quick notes, though. And then the last one was the actual sewer rate increase.
Okay.
And by this time, I'll be honest, we're all exhausted. It's
I
been
can
2.5 plus hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't a lot of conversation about this part. But I do want to go back. I did forget to mention that I had asked a clarifying question of the council, really of Senator Lannon, City Attorney Lannon,
mm-hmm.
that when the mayor said we have to go back and revisit rates in 2028,
Mm-hmm.
and then Mr. Lannon is talking about $83 million plus $103 million coming down the road and what we need to address. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. My question was, is that the rate increase Mayor Broderick was referring to? And the answer was yes. So we have a huge bond
mm-hmm.
coming potentially, or even more rate increases coming down the road. So again, it is important to dig into this now so we understand what we're going to be asked of in 2 or 3 years.
There's and this may not even have anything to do with it, but I've tried to connect the two. There was recently a sanitary sewer district or a sanitary district group resurrected.
That's right.
And I believe it was to revisit these bonds that were coming up. That's what I believe David Ikes had told me, and I believe Terry Austin, who is she oversees that particular sanitary district. And so it would be interesting. Those are public meetings. I don't know how often they occur, but perhaps there are some questions to be had of that group as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot totally about that group or that board. It's not just a group. It's not a book club. So the final vote was on the actual rate increase or the bond,
Mm-hmm.
and that went through
Okay.
the same 5-4, 5 yes, 4 abstaining.
Okay.
So, and then of course there were no public comments at that point.
Yeah,
we were
it'd been long.
Yeah,
But
we were all ready to go.
a couple of questions I did have. Is public comment still, it's an agenda item on the agenda, is that correct? Or was that on this particular agenda, do we know?
It was not on this agenda, but this was a special meeting.
Yes.
So
Good point.
that may be why.
Okay. And you said we were getting tired. What was the attendance like?
There were not as much as I had expected.
Mm-hmm.
So there was maybe 10 to 15 people
Okay.
outside of now there were quite a few consultants and department heads. So
Yes. But average or citizens that may be there, 10
right,
to
it
15?
was not like the regular meeting where there were an abundance of people.
Yeah, from the 8th, which, there's a hot topic still to be had on the athletic park development. So
Right.
that was not even discussed on the 22nd and may kind of fall back a little bit, although we do know we should expect some kind of request from the council to approve the $38 million, I think, that was just asked of the redevelopment commission as part of that park plan.
I need to ask about that.
Yeah,
because I'm not sure.
Let's bookmark that, because
Yes.
I think I did ask a couple of people who would know, and they
Okay.
said yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so you've
we
already-
asked the council, I think, on the 8th, since it was tabled or it didn't make the agenda on January 8th. Will we expect some kind of public hearing on this? And will it happen here in the council chamber? And do you have to give approval? And I believe 2 or 3 said yes, who were
Okay.
still there. So we'll get clarification on that. But
Yes. Yeah.
So, are you wrapping up, or are there some other things that you'd like us to know about this meeting?
I've presented all that of the notes that I've taken is in hopefully a consumable way that's not been too long.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we're think about a 3-hour meeting and
Right.
condensing it down to about a third of that time,
Yeah.
and not even that. I think this is so important to be boiled out in maybe common language, and someone who couldn't even spend the time to see the 3-hour live stream, let alone attend the meeting.
Right.
This is another way to get that information. So we appreciate you so much.
Well, you're welcome.
You're-
Thank you,
you're-
and you're welcome.
Your interpretation and be able to interpret the information and then give it back out to us is really invaluable. And I don't think a lot of people could really do that. So kudos to you, my friend.
Well, I do treat myself to a Dairy Queen after
Okay.
most council meetings. So
I
there
thought
is
it
that
was-
little carrot out there.
Yeah. I thought it was McDonald's French fries at one time.
I'll take those too.
Dare you dip them in a
barbecue
shake?
sauce?
Oh,
No, barbecue
barb-
sauce.
oh,
all the way.
Okay. So we did mention we wanted to kind of round this out and mention dates one more time, and maybe a call to action for those listening. What would those be?
So remember, February 12th is the regular council meeting. So we don't have the agenda yet. We typically don't get that until about 2 days before the meeting. And but it's always good to come on out and see what's going on. February 17th is the public hearing, 5:30. So that is your chance to ask your questions and get more information on this right from the source. And then on the 19th of February, they're going to do their second, and if the second passes, their third readings on the ordinance.
All right, so there you have it. We have some other dates we are going to mention in some future podcasts, but we don't want to load you down on your calendar. What we do want to suggest, though, is that you go to the City of Anderson Agenda Center. And so you can literally type those words in or go to the City of Anderson website and then do a keyword search and look for Agenda Center. And there should be a list of boards and commissions that run Anderson. And so you'll see the various meeting times, and you can actually sign up to get notifications. I think in the upper right corner you'll see something that says notify, and then it will walk you through the ways that maybe you could be notified. I personally have signed up to get emails, both to remind me when the meetings are occurring, and they send you the agenda. So if you're someone who needs those reminders or would like to sign up for that, go to the City of Anderson Agenda Center.
Yep, that's a great tip.
All right, Angie. Well, it's been, as always, good talking to you, and I look forward to future conversation.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.